Hello, my name is Peterentwistletv, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make a very simple login system using PHP. Now, before we start, I just want to point out that you don't have to be too knowledgeable on PHP because I'm going to try and explain everything I'm doing. So if you're a beginner in PHP but have some other programming language, maybe JavaScript or some other kind of language, you should be able to pick up the basics pretty easily. If you've not had any experience with any programming language at all, then don't worry, you still might be able to follow along, but I do recommend that you have at least a basic understanding first. So this system that I'm going to show you how to make isn't going to be actually using a database at first. In the second video I'll probably be showing you how to use Mysql databases instead of the way that I'm going to be doing it today. But to keep it simple, we're just going to not use any databases. So all it's going to do is you enter your username, password, and then click login or enter, and then it just takes you to a user.php file, and all it does is it says that the username is Peter and the ID is 1111. So if I just navigate to another page and then back to the user again, it still says Peter, and in the title it still says my username there. But if I was to log out, which I'll be showing you how to make this page too, and then we go back to the user.php, it says that I'm not logged in because I don't have the session variable set because they're being destroyed. So I'll be showing you how to do all that in this tutorial today. I'm going to try and explain everything in as much detail as possible, so if you're new to PHP or have only just started using it recently, you'll just still be able to understand the basics behind it. Okay, so in your favourite text editor, create a new file and then call it index.php. Let's save it in your folder of choice. Make sure you do save it in a separate folder so it's not all jumbled with different files and things. It'll make it a lot easier later at when we actually put it onto the server. So to speed up the process, I'm just going to paste in the HTML that I've already made. So I'm just going to quickly go over this, although you should be fairly familiar with HTML by now if you're going to be working with PHP. So we've got the basics, the head, body. In the body I've got this form element. This is just to let us enter the username and password. So I'll just give it an ID so I can use some CSS later. We give it an action of this itself, index.php. So when you submit the form, it sends it, basically refreshes the page and then executes the PHP with the variables that you've entered. The method is post, and I'll go into more detail about that in a minute. And this here is just to tell how we want the form data to be sent. Then I've just got an input element here, which is self-closing, and it's got the name of username, and type is text. The same for password, except the type is password. So when you enter your password, it comes out of these bullet point type things, so you don't actually see what you're entering for security reasons. Then we have this submit button at the bottom here, and the value is login, so that's just then what you want it to be called basically. And we give it a name of submit, and the type is also submit. So I think I'll just quickly put the CSS in here just to make it look a little bit better. Okay, so I just added some CSS that I made earlier. I don't want to go over the CSS too much because this is a PHP tutorial mainly, but basically I'm just changing the font type and then I'm just making this go in the center of the page and have a little bit of a border at the top. That's what this does basically. Okay, so now it's time to start the PHP. I'm just going to move this HTML down a few lines. To start a PHP block, you just use a less than, and then you use a question mark, PHP, and then just go down a couple of lines, question mark, greater than symbol, and that is how you start a PHP block. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need is session start. This is a function that's inbuilt into PHP. This just tells PHP that we want to start a new session. You need to put this right at the top of the document before any HTML or anything else really. After session start, we need to create an if statement, and then we use a predefined variable called post. All variables in PHP start with a dollar symbol, and predefined variables, which are ones that are built into PHP themselves, start with an underscore. And any variables we create ourselves, we don't start with a underscore, but we can name them whatever we want. So this predefined variable just looks out for any data that's being posted to it, usually by a form. So in this case we're using this form here which sends the variables, and this is basically looking for it. So after the post predefined variable, we use square bracket and then a single quote, username, single quote, another square bracket to close off. We need to close our bracket off here and then open a curly brace and then a closing curly brace. Let's put some space in between there. So this is just saying that we're looking for posted data with the name of username, which in this case is here. We could also have used password, but it doesn't really matter, so we're going to just stick with username. So next, because I'm not using a database, I'm just going to create some variables to be the username and password, and I'm also going to create an ID. Okay, so I've just created these variables here. So I'm saying the database username, as if this is pretending that this is the value for the database. I'm just going to say that's going to be Peter, the password is going to be test, user ID is going to be 4 ones. I'm then going to create some more variables which are going to hold the data that is sent through the form here. So first we need the username. So I'm just going to use this strip tags function on the posted username and the same on the password. Now if we were using a database, we would use a function called mysqli real escape string, which I'll go into on the next tutorial. But basically this function here is just removing HTML tags. It doesn't really protect the system or anything, but I just decided to put this in here just to demonstrate the fact that we would be using some other type of function to sanitize the variables. But for now we're just going to stick with strip tags, I'm going to go into more about the proper, more secure ways of processing entered variables. But for now we'll just stick with this. Okay, so this last little bit here is another if statement, which all it's doing here is it's saying if the username, which is the username that the person entered in the form, if that is equal to the username that's in our database, which is being this placeholder here, which is going to be Peter. So it's saying if what they entered is Peter, and double ampersand means and in PHP, the password that they entered is also equal to the password that's in the database, or in this case it's in this variable. So next we're just setting the session variables here. This is going to be stored as a cookie, a temporary one, that will be destroyed at the end of the session. So a session cookie doesn't last for a long time. It usually only lasts until you close the browser down. If you wanted it so they didn't have to log in every time, you would use a cookie instead of a session. For now, we're just going to stick with sessions. So we're setting the session username and ID equal to the variables that were set earlier, so the username that they entered and the user ID that would have been in the database, but in this case it's just a variable. And then we're going to header them to the user.php file, which we'll create in a second. Then we just want to have an else and then echo a little message that just says that the username and password was incorrect. Please try again. So now we could test this, but I think I'll create the user.php first because that won't take too long. So just create a new file, PHP, just remove all that. Okay, so I've got the basic HTML outline here. Again, we open the PHP block, the same as we did before, and then we have session start at the top again. So on the user.php page, we also need another if statement. All this is doing is just saying if the session ID is set, which we did set over in the login section, we set it here. So it's saying if the ID, which should be this, is set, we then create the session into a local variable, and then I'm creating a result variable which I'm going to echo down in the body section of the HTML. So I'm just going to say that the test variables are username, and then I'm going to concatenate this bit of string or text basically with the variable, which is going to be Peter in this case. So the dot is a concatenator in PHP. In JavaScript it's a plus, and then use double quotes, or it could even use single quotes actually, doesn't matter. And I'm just saying that the ID is the ID from the session, which we set as 1111 when we logged in. So then we just echo the result here, so it's either going to be you're logged in, this is your username and that's the ID of your account, or if they weren't logged in, or if they don't have any session, they don't have the session set, it just says that they're not logged in. The title, I just echoed the username here as well, and then that's it basically. So I'm just going to save this as user.php. Okay, so I've now uploaded the index.php and the user.php to my local test server, which I'm actually using XAMPP, which is a free program available on Windows, Linux and Mac. It's completely free and open source, so I'll put the link to that in the description. So basically I've created this login test directory on the server, and we can now enter our username and password, which I set as Peter, and I put the password as test1. So as before, it shows us the username, which was Peter, and the ID, which we set in the index.php, which if we were using a database, we would be getting this data from the database and setting it into the variables. Just for simplicity, I decided to set it in PHP. So this all seems to be working fine. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do is create a logout.php file, which is just going to destroy the sessions, and then you could even send them to the login page again once they've logged out, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to put a little message saying that they've now successfully logged out. Okay, so again, just create a new file, PHP, and I'm just going to paste in what I've made before. This is what we'll be having in the logout.php file. Okay, to start, we need the session start function again. Then we destroy the session with session destroy, and then we just have a little if-else statement to basically check that they are logged out. So this would run whether they're logged in or not, but basically it's just to make sure they are, that the session no longer exists. If it does, it just says that they're logged out, and if the message, otherwise the message says that they couldn't be logged out for some reason, which shouldn't happen but may happen, so we just have to put that in there just in case. And then we're just echoing the message variable, which we don't actually need those quotation marks there. So we're just echoing the message variable. Then underneath I've just got a link to take them back to the home page. So I'm going to save this as logout.php, and then I'm going to upload it to the server. Okay, so I've now uploaded logout.php to the server, and I'm just going to navigate to the page, and it's now destroyed my sessions. So we're successfully logged out of the login system. So now I'm just going to quickly go over what we're going to do next time, hopefully. I think I'm just going to show you how to make a MySQL database from scratch. I'm going to be using PHP MyAdmin because it makes it much simpler to create a database. Again, the database is going to be used. It's going to be locally stored on with XAMPP. So if you don't already have XAMPP or another similar system installed on your machine, I suggest you use XAMPP because it already has MySQL and PHP MyAdmin already installed, so you can just run all the files and set up the database straight on there. Or of course, if you already have a web server, you could do the same on your web server. I'm sorry about the length of this tutorial. I know that it's probably gone on way too long, but hopefully I explained this in a way that you could understand. If you have any questions about this tutorial, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I'll also post a link to the page on my website where this tutorial will be, and on there it'll have all the code so you can download it or copy it just to make sure you've got the right bits of information if you want to refer to it. So that'll be available on my website. So thank you for watching this tutorial. I'll be back soon with a MySQL database tutorial that we're going to integrate into this system.